Go ahead, Jamie. You want to start us?
I haven't done this in so long. Okay. Welcome to the Culinary Now podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Schick.
And I'm Matt Britt.
And today we are joined with a wonderful chef, Monica Glass. Monica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Jamie and Matt. I'm super excited.
Well, we are also excited to dive deep into everything we're going to talk about today, which is going to revolve mainly around gluten-free baking, both probably culinary and savory applications. But I first want to start off by having you kind of tell your story to our listeners.
Sure. Started a long time ago. I guess back in college is really where, many years ago, even before that, I kind of fell in love with food, cooking with my grandmom and my dad. But anyway, college is when I started working in a restaurant and really felt the bug. And I just loved the energy I was a server and just loved it. So then when I moved to New York City, I never went to culinary school. I had a career in I started a career in public relations. And I just kept gravitating towards the food side of the company I was with. I volunteered for all the events. I wanted to meet all the chefs. I just loved food, and I was in New York City. So why not take advantage of that, culinary mecca there? And then I befriended a chef who basically became my mentor. Her name is Maureen Petrosky. You might see her often on the NBC Today show. She's a correspondent or a featured guest a lot. And she basically convinced me to, if I wanted to learn how to cook better, to make a list of my top 10 restaurants and chefs that I wanted to learn from and go down the list one by one. Thankfully, my number one choice, Deborah Rasmussen at Gotham Bar and Grill, ended up bringing me on her team as an unpaid intern, which I know is not really a thing now, but I was able to take advantage of that when we still did that. And I just moonlit with her after my job until she finally offered me a paid position and kind of took off from there. I went to Le Bernardin and studied under Michael Lascanis. And all throughout this time, I was constantly battling health issues as well. So just not really knowing what it was, but going through my everyday as normal. And then Michael Lascanis and Chef Eric Repair sent me down to Philadelphia, where I opened up 10 Arts at the Ritz-Carlton with Jen Carroll, one of my really good friends. And stayed there for 4 or 5 years and went up to Boston for the first time to work under Ken Oringer at Clio. Stayed here for a few years, went back to Philadelphia to work at Constellation Culinary Group, and now I am back in Boston working with Ken as his business partner.
That's very exciting.
You mentioned so many like killer names there. Like I still liking Clio. Like I ate there. I don't know. It was probably like 2006. It's one of those like iconic food memories just to see like that institution of a restaurant in its prime was truly something special. And then like Le Bernardin, I mean that's like I guess okay, like it's like
Yeah.
middle of the road, established. No, it's fantastic.
And actually, I just saw yesterday that they were awarded Best Restaurant in the World. I'm not sure by which publication. I forgot to check that out. But yeah,
Really,
so that's a great accolade for Chef Repair and team.
It's interesting. So we hosted Eric on our campus last year, and just still, and like if you read any of his books, you understand his mindset, and it's just his ability to like sustain. Like I tell students a lot that like success isn't measured by when you achieve it; it's how long you sustain it. And if I just think about people that are like on like the Mount Rushmore of sustainable success, like Eric Repair has to be there. I mean, the dude's been like at the top for so long, and he's created this just internal culture that's pretty inspiring. But you would know that more than anyone.
Absolutely. I mean, I loved working with him. It was such a surreal and, a great learning experience. And last year I went to the Cayman Islands and cooked with him. So,
oh, that sounds fantastic. So you mentioned something when you were, laying out your story that, you had been struggling with health issues. And I know the answer sort of to this, but like, you had something happen like around 2009, 2010 that really shifted how you approached your career. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I was after battling with a lot of just health issues. There was anemia. I kept passing out. I was severely underweight. Just constant digestive distress as well. I was finally diagnosed with celiac disease, among also a few other things, but celiac was the main one, and kind of flipped my world upside down because, every day, what do? I work with flour. I bake breads, I make pastries, and I didn't really know what else I would do or if I had to switch careers all of a sudden. And I loved what I did. So I kind of, instead of looking at it, I mean, yes, of course, it made me upset, really upset. And I had a little mental breakdown with that and, went through all the emotions of grief. But then I realized it didn't have to stop me and I could kind of take it head on as a challenge to create similar foods, but gluten-free, and that my goal became hopefully all of my foods nobody would really notice as gluten-free, because as I kind of went on that path, I realized that I was constantly singled out. I was the only one who couldn't eat this. It was super hard to go out to dinner with friends because I had to ask for a special menu or special accommodations. And with my food and cooking, I really don't want to do that to other people because I know how isolating it felt. So that just became my goal, is to create food that everybody could enjoy together. And that was celiac friendly.
I love that that is your goal so that no one feels left out. But I do know from being a pastry chef that gluten-free tends to have a bad reputation. It can be dry, it can be crumbly, it can be gummy. And I know that eventually this did lead you to create your own blend of gluten-free flours. But I'm also wondering, how did you create baked goods that had a desirable texture for everyone that avoided these stereotypes of gluten-free baking?
That's a great question. And it didn't start out that way. Of course, I experimented a lot and had a lot of failures. And I think that's really where I learned kind of how different flours and different ingredients worked and how they can combine together. And then a lot of research. When I have something in my head that I want to figure out, I like do deep dives into it. Um, Very nerdy like that. But I kind of researched a lot of, just about the properties of different ingredients and why they work together. And that's also why I'm in pastry, because I love to figure out why things work the way they do. And just after tinkering and a lot of different tweaks on recipes, it might even be like a tiny small amount, say like 5 grams of something somewhere might make a huge difference on the texture. And it was a lot of doing that and a lot of playing around and trying to figure it out. And finally, I decided that I didn't like many of the store-bought like combinations of flours already. So that's why I came up with my own blend. And that's been in different iterations over the years too, until I finally came up with something that I'm happy with that works as an almost all-purpose flour, but it's not all-purpose.
So it's interesting because, like in 2009, you mentioned you felt singled out, like you were the person at the table that couldn't eat this or drink that, or in over a decade, but like not that long ago, but like since then, I feel like the paradigm has shifted a little bit where, there's been this rise in, people who have celiac, or this rise in gluten-free preferences that sort of emerged, this sort of huge industry of, gluten-free beer, or, gluten-free flours. Do you feel like that helps, like this sort of evolution, that like it's not just singling you out, like a lot of people have gluten intolerances? Do you think that that helps you as a chef kind of move things forward? Like, do you have an easier audience to cater to now because it's more prominent? That was a long way to get there, but
No, but I think that's twofold. One, yes, it makes it so much easier to cater to people because people are more accepting of it now. At first, there was such a stigma, like how Jamie said, gluten-free things are typically dry, bland, crumbly, gummy. And now that more people have been getting into it, like things have gotten a lot better. A lot of the goods that you can find in the grocery store are much better. Chefs are more aware of it and trying more, or they're making better things now. And I think consumers are are wanting it, and they're enjoying what they're getting now. But then on the flip side, and it also makes it makes it easier for people like me to go out and eat and actually feel safe eating. But on the flip side of that, it became such a fad as opposed to people necessarily needing it. And I think if anybody wants to eat gluten-free, by all means, eat gluten-free. But
Right.
it was when people were saying that it's an allergy, when it's just a preference, but then you would see that same person go and drink a beer, but with their food, they needed gluten-free,
Right.
that people started taking it less seriously. And chefs, for instance, in restaurants, and trying to tie this all together, but
No,
yeah.
this is you said the word trend, and I it makes me think that, like, is gluten free sort of going the way of plant based, right? And I look at, like, another iconic institution in New York, 11 Madison Park, which is like, you know what, all plant based, and we're having the pastry chef Laura come to our campus in the spring to do a presentation,
Oh,
because
that's amazing.
it's almost like, is it a challenge for chefs that aren't necessarily forced into it like you were? Like, are we going to see restaurants like the 11 Madison Park just be like, you know what? No, it's not just plant based, but now gluten free, and just to show what is possible when you just understand. And I think there's an education component there that factors in not only to being a chef, but also to why people are so scared of this, is because they just don't know. They don't know you can cook great things without using flour or gluten flour.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think by making it more popular, more people seeking that lifestyle, uh, it has made it more enticing for people to eat as well, because there's better food out there now that we have the knowledge.
I definitely see it in our students as well. They more and more want to learn how to make gluten-free items. They want to learn how to modify recipes to be dairy-free or vegan. They're very they're very in sync with what's going on in the industry and the popularity of these dietary preferences. And it's not something that I'm an expert in, but I'm slowly learning a little about each thing because my students are interested in it and I want to have some information to give to them. And kind of going back to what we were talking about before with the reputation of gluten-free items and all your trials and errors, if you had one tip to give to someone trying to do gluten-free baking, is there something that you could share that you found is like, I wish I had known this sooner?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, I guess one of the more simple things is that a lot of gluten-free flours are very starchy, and they
Mm.
absorb moisture way more than flour. So that's why a lot of recipes, if you're trying to do like a one-to-one conversion, don't turn out, because you need to hydrate differently. So I think that's probably one of the simpler um, suggestions that I have for when you're starting to tinker out in the baking, is that you don't necessarily, it's just not a one-to-one translation for all recipes, and to try to do that. But also, don't give up if it comes out like a brick or something bad the first time, because it might just be a few little things. Like, learn about different types of the protein in different types of flours, because gluten is a protein and gluten-free flours typically lack the protein to create the binding structure. So you want to dive into that and maybe add some ingredients that would help bulk up that protein, and learn about other different like gums or binders. Like psyllium husk is a great one that I love to use, and flax seeds as well. So those are my tips.
No,
I think that's perfect.
great tips, great tips,
Yeah.
and I think that it's just that it's not a complete, like, A for B. You have to actually
Mhm.
understand, and it goes back to the education. It's like, if you're going to embrace this and do this well, it's almost like you have to learn how to cook all over again. Knowing that you can carry certain techniques with you, but it's just a different lens to look at it through. My question to you is, and this kind of piggybacks on what Jamie and you talked about earlier, is that even though this is far more common and chefs are embracing it, and there's it's not like weird to be gluten-free. It's actually acceptable. I mean, we embedded it in our curriculum, like not only because students want it,
Oh,
but also because like, okay, create a menu, but one item has to meet this criteria because we know what guests they're going to see when they get into industry. It does probably still have a reputation as being okay, pretty good, but not like, gluten-free bread is never going to be the same. Is there one item that you can think of where, that kind of is not the case, where actually gluten-free is better? And if so,
better.
why? A,
I mean, I love, for instance, one item that I can think of gluten-free, my gluten-free brownies, because they're just fudgier than
yeah.
flour or brownies with traditional flour, and I love fudgy brownies with crispy edges.
Oh, me too. That's the best part.
That's a great example because I think that like, everyone perceives baked goods needing to be light, but a brownie is the perfect vehicle to actually like double down on the other side. It's like, how do you eat fudge but not actually call it fudge? It's a brownie, but gluten free.
Brownie.
That's a great example.
So aside from being a aside, well, aside from having celiac and being a pastry chef, I know that you're also a chef as well. And I know that you're very talented because I've known you for a long time, and I'm
Oh, thank
wondering,
you.
out of all of the awesome experiences that you've had, has there been one that was your biggest inspiration or like the defining moment that you can think of your career?
That's a very good question because I feel like I've had many amazing mentors. Like everyone that I've named earlier has been such a great mentor to me, and I wouldn't put one over the other. But I think the one that really helps me look outside of the box and really helped me hone not necessarily my gluten free, but the cojones to like look outside of like what the regular flours are was Ken Oranger, because he has such an innovative way of thinking, and he pushes you in the best ways to get out of your own head and just like try whatever's there, try it. And I think sometimes I need that because I can definitely get stuck in the overthinking process.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
So speaking of Ken, you mentioned him. Let's talk about your project. I know you have a new exciting project going on right here in sort
Yes.
of in the Boston area. Can you talk a little bit about what keeps you busy throughout the day these days?
It's a mix of things because
Right.
we're not open yet, but I am opening Vervan Cafe and Bakery with Ken Oranger, and it's kind of a classic bakery, but with inspirations and influences from both of our backgrounds. There'll be a lot of fun foods. So right now I'm busy doing a lot of recipe testing, connecting with purveyors and different the technology setups and having meetings with our contractors because we're still in the building phase, but we're almost there. And I just actually posted ads to start hiring people too. So I'll be starting to interview people. And if you have any of your students, if you want to send them my way, that would be great. But yeah, that's been keeping me busy a lot. And then I'm also working on bringing my flour line, Wildflower by Monica Glass, my gluten-free flours, to market. Want to turn them into a consumer packaged good. So right now I'm working with a manufacturer to manufacture them and grow them bigger.
And those will be available for sale in the cafe?
They'll be available for sale in the cafe, on the website, and on my website to start until I can get them into stores.
And is that what you'll be using in your products as well?
For a lot of my products, yes. Like I said, it's not an all purpose for everything, but for most things it's great.
Awesome.
So, I mean, as someone who's also opened a restaurant, I know that it's both exciting and scary, and it's just there's a lot of emotions that kind of flow through that. In your experience and with this project, what is the like? Because we have a lot of students that want to eventually own their own
Yeah.
restaurant. Is there something you've experienced, and maybe this is with with Ken as a partner. I mean, there's tons of experience there too. Like, what still surprises you about opening a restaurant? Like, what is the thing that even though you might know, or you might have amazing mentors that can say, you know what, this is one thing we got to get done. Like, what still creeps up on you when you open a restaurant that you might not have thought was as big of a deal?
First is timing. It's
Yeah.
we're delayed from what we had hoped we would be open, but it's kind of par for the course that we knew it was going to happen. But yeah, everything takes a lot longer, and I'm very impatient. So just know that applying for permits and all your licenses and everything like that, and then just the actual construction, you're always going to find something that's a little different than what you thought you were walking into. So keep in mind that your timing is not going to be what you think.
So plan for it to be delayed is what you're saying.
Plan for it to be delayed.
I mean, for those listening, you're not alone in the sense that you have this vision that you want to be open by a certain time, and maybe you time it so that that opening is around a very busy event in the city, so you can capture that. And then as that date gets closer, you start to see your dreams slowly being crushed a little bit. It's like, oh my God, we're not going to make it. But you do open, and eventually things all work out.
Absolutely. Like it'll work out when we're ready.
Are there going to be any signature items that you're going to be having, or that you're really excited to put out to the public?
Ooh, so many things. My sourdough bread. We're also working on a lot of other breads, and the biscuits. The biscuits are going to be a signature item as well for breakfast sandwiches, and then just for sale on them as themselves. My banana bread, since I have a banana bread mix that I'm going to be selling too, is going to be a signature item. And then we're, like I said, we're going to do classics, but with fun and funky flavors as well.
So, Monica,
That sounds right up my alley.
Are those that sourdough and the banana? Are those all gluten free, or are you kind of doing a little bit of both?
You'll find out.
Okay.
It's a little hush hush right now.
No, it's good. I mean, I'm just curious because, like, I feel like
We're just excited.
yeah,
Thank you.
like when you see people that bring your own personal like story, is there's a desire maybe to go all in, or is it like I'm actually, this is a question about like sort of just business, is like, did you have the conversation that like, you know what, we're not going to go all in gluten free because in some ways that makes it exclusive to other people that maybe don't subscribe to that or want that? I mean, like how does that process go? How do you balance your own personal like sort of not beliefs but like experiences with the idea that like what's good for business?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, we've had those conversations. And at the end of the day, my goal is to make everybody happy with food and to feed everybody and have them enjoy everything together. So, you and I can dine together.
No, I think that that's a very intelligent way to not answer the question. So I mean,
You'll find out very soon.
You've clearly had some media training.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of students that do listen to our podcast, and obviously Matt and I are both in education. And you have mentioned staging before, and I know that was a big thing when you and I were coming up in the industry, and I think it's still happening today. And what tips do you have for students that are going on their first stages? Because a lot of my sophomores, they ask this question. They have their first stage. They don't know what to expect. They don't know what to bring. And I'm just wondering if you have any tips for them for going out, or if they're coming to stage for you for a position.
Yeah. So for anyone that I'm hiring or a stage, I always look for people, one, who have enthusiasm and they're really eager to learn. They don't act as if they know everything, because I know that you might have some experience, but I mean, I don't even have all the experience in the world. I'm always open to learning. So that's my number one tip, is to come in eager, enthusiastic, and you have a desire to learn. Number two, ask questions. I can get really annoying because I ask a lot of questions. And actually, when I worked at La Bernardin, I would ask Michael Lascanis so many questions that one day he turned to me and he said, you're not normal. And I said, I know, thanks. I took it as the
That's a good
highest
thing.
compliment.
That's a good thing. That is a good thing because normal people don't always go outside the box. That's a good thing.
Yeah. And I like when people ask questions because it means they want to learn. So ask questions and bring a notebook.
Yes. Oh my God. You hit like a nerve there. So like in my course, the only required material, some courses have textbooks and additional, the only required thing you have to bring outside of like your uniform and your knives is a little notebook. And the students
Yes.
are like, why is this important? I'm like, because the majority of our feedback is verbal and it's in the moment and it's quick and it's not necessarily something that we're documenting, which, is probably not great, but it's sort of a byproduct of our industry, right? It's like things happen really quick. It's like
So
that Ferris
true.
Bueller line. If you don't stop to like take a moment and write it down, like you're going to miss something, it's like it. My question to you though is like, so we talk about staging and some tips, ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid if someone calls you not normal because that's okay. Write stuff down, have a notebook. Do you think the stage is still the best way to evaluate not only the restaurant if you're the person staging, but also the employee if you're the restaurant? Like, do you think that this is, because it's happened forever and I still think it's has value, but like, I'm curious as someone who's opening a restaurant and probably going through this process now, like, what do you think? Is this still the best way?
I absolutely do. I think it gives both parties, so me as the chef and then the stage, it gives us both an opportunity to see how we work together, how the whole team works together. I can see your style, you can see mine, and that way we can, if they jive, they jive. If you as the stage don't think it's a fit for you, then you can leave. And if I don't think you're a good fit for the team, then vice versa. But I think it's a great way, because when you're in a kitchen and when you're in the heat of the moment is so much different than just interviewing somebody.
Agree.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. I always tell my students that it's not just an interview for you, it's an interview for them too. Because if you don't like the culture, you don't like the kitchen, like that's a sign that maybe you don't want to accept a position there. So I always tell them it's for both sides. And I agree with you. I'm glad it's not going away. I'm glad it's still here because I think it's really valuable. And even if you're not doing it for a job, you're just doing it for experience to see how other kitchens and chefs work and to be inspired by different food and different plates. And yeah, I think they're great. I highly recommend them.
Yeah,
So,
and can I just had
yeah,
one
no,
thing
no,
to
no,
go on
go, go.
that.
Sorry.
Going Following that up, that's where like I need the staff as much as they need a job. So
Mhm.
I love that we're as a um, the hospitality community, as a culture, we are changing. And it's not just like whatever the chef says, like the yelling chefs, the thing like that. Because no, I want to build a culture where you feel valued and important, because I do need you.
Right. No, and I think that's we see that, we teach that. There's far more empathy and there's just it's the better industry to work in than
Hmm.
perhaps, I'm not saying working in, the 90s and 2000s wasn't great, but it was kind of hostile. Like there was problems there. You mentioned, some best practices as far as like, okay, ask questions, write stuff down. I always tell, and I'm curious what your take on this too is. Like, is there something as an employer that is like a red flag? And what I tell students is, one way to really go above and beyond, in addition to asking questions, is like clean. Like, go and start cleaning something. I think that as a chef, the person who does their stage, picks up their knives and just walks out the door, even if they wipe down a little bit, like to me, it doesn't land as well as the person who's like, oh, can I actually stay and clean up with the team? Like, that's an intangible thing that I don't know if a lot of young cooks realize they should do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I always look for people who clean up after themselves, who help,
Right.
who aren't just looking out for themselves as well. They function as more of a team, and help each other out, because it's not. I know in the olden days as well, a lot of the time, like if you're on the line, it's me against the rest. They weren't necessarily cohesive, and now it is. You want to help. If you see one of your teammates struggling, ask if you can help them.
Yeah, jump on.
Yeah, so I think, and then the not offering to clean at the end is a definite red flag for me.
Yeah, it's this. Like, I remember when I was really young, like 16, working in a restaurant. Like, the chef came up to me and was like, I need someone to fill in on New Year's Eve, and like I think I said no, and I just remember like walking away from the restaurant being like I fucked up. That was like, and I still think about that. I'm like it all worked out, I guess, but what did that take away in his mind? Like, what did that do for him to value me, whether it came for a promotion or a raise or just an opportunity? So like, it's almost like you want to say yes when you can, right? If it really, and to think about, like, don't just say no. Think about, why should I say yes? And if the answer is no, the answer is no. But that always sticks with me.
Yeah, that's
This
a
is
good
like, what,
example.
25 years later. It's not that I have like major like issues, but like, it's still there. This is all fantastic information, and I'm so happy you shared your story. And we're obviously rooting for you in your new venture, and I think it's going to be super successful. I want to end because I have a sort of a personal experience that happened to me, and I'll combine. Jamie's like, I told Jamie this is a fun question, using air quotes. It's more the sort of the label of being a chef, but outside of a restaurant. And maybe you have some experiences with this from the gluten-free arena, but just, I'll paint my story and you can tell me what you think the best way is. If there's a situation where you go to someone's house and they're like, you've maybe heard this. They're like, "Oh, I was a little nervous. I'm cooking for the chef." It's like, and like deep down, you're like, "Shut up!" Like, this is like, I'm like, it doesn't matter, like. But they set this tone that, like, the food's not going to be as good. But deep down, you're like, it doesn't matter. The food could be like really bad, and it doesn't. Like, it's not a big deal. How do you respond? Like, let's say the food is not great. Like, how do you respond? Because like, it doesn't happen a lot, but like, now they're in your head, and you're like, I'm like forced to say something that's like gonna not crush their dreams. Like how do you respond?
Yeah, I actually get that a lot, quite often. But I respond that I am just so appreciative that you wanted to cook for me, and I don't judge people who cook for me unless I'm paying.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I think that leaning on the hospitality side is, because the worst cooks can often be still really good hosts.
Mhm.
It's like, and listen, sometimes just serve
And
them.
it's one meal you don't have to think about or worry
Yeah.
about or clean up after, or it's like the food always tastes best when you don't have to cook it.
Yes.
Or clean. I agree. And like, this isn't something that happened recently. I was thinking about this for some reason, because over the holidays someone said like, "Oh, we got to make something really special because the chef." I'm like, "Come on, really? Like, that's not like, just like, let's enjoy our time. Like, this is
Yeah.
it's all
I'm
good."
just happy to eat a good meal with good friends or family, or, and the fact that you wanted to cook for me means a lot, especially that you went above and beyond to make gluten-free food.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
So, Monica, this was awesome, and again, I appreciate you humoring my intrinsic like question that I just randomly came up with. But no, this is great, and thank you so much for the time. And we look for. Oh, you said you're looking for students to come work for you. Is there a way that they
Absolutely.
can get in touch with you directly? Like, what's the best way for students to say like, "I want to come work for you"?
Yeah. So email is the best. My email is monica@vervencafe.com. If you can't remember that, you can always DM me on Instagram, which is @chefmani.
Perfect. And you'll share updates about the opening and everything there so people can stay on top of it.
Yeah, because you didn't answer our
Exactly.
questions today about the opening, so we're going to have to follow you on social
It's still
media.
TBD. It's
I know.
coming, but
I thought,
soon.
Jamie, I thought we had clout, but apparently we just have to wait it out like everyone else. It's
I
okay.
know.
You have
It's okay.
clout, but
I
I can't tell the whole world yet.
appreciate it. So, Monica,
So
thank you.
so we'll stop recording and we'll get the real info.
Yes. All right. All right, Monica.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again for taking the
Thank
time.
you, guys. So good seeing you.